a British rock star made a scary promise in 1994. A film crew heard him say that by the end of the decade, he wanted Phil Collins' head in his fridge. He wasn't playing. He wasn't the only one who called Phil the antichrist of music. A famous grunge artist said he'd wear tie-dye only if it was made with Phil's pee. Phil said something mean about a reality TV judge. Even the hero of his youth made fun of him in public. Somehow, the artist who sold 150 million albums became the most feared musician in the world. Phil Collins was born in Chiswick, West London, on January 30th, 1951. June, his mother, worked as a theater agent. Greville, his dad, worked in insurance. Phil was shaped from the start by this mix of freedom and order. Due to his mom's job, they often talked about show business at home. Artists, people at dinner talked about stage plans and performances. He learned as a child how the business worked behind the scenes, how to deal with managers, how to find good deals, and how to handle a crowd. Without even realizing it, Phil was learning about show business behind the scenes before he could even write a full statement. Then, when he was 5, something made sense. He became very excited when he got a toy drum kit. It wasn't just a kid banging on something. Phil had something special. During the same year, he joined a talent show while on vacation with his family at Butlins. Behind him, an orchestra started to play, but they were in the wrong key. They were stopped by little Phil. He was right when he told the musicians to leave. A 5-year-old telling trained adults what to do. It showed something important, but people couldn't believe it. Phil not only heard music, he knew what it meant. Because of his pitch, timing, and guts, he stood out. After that, no one else saw him the same way. In his early teens, Phil was already putting on shows for big groups. In the London version of Oliver, he played the smart dodger. It was a tough part that required both charm and swagger. He was also an extra in A Hard Day's Night by the Beatles in 1964. After that, he shot parts of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. They were cut, though. That was the first time he knew how rough the show business could be. Your work might not be used even if you did everything right. Phil did more than just act in school. He was also putting together bands. The Real Thing was the name of his first real band. It was clear from the name. They were not messing around. Lies, Crying, and Dying was his first song. It was written with another early band called Freehold. The title was exciting, but the feelings were real. It proved he was more than just a drummer or actor. He had things to say. He told them to use music. This was the start of Phil Collins as an artist, songwriter, and lead singer. Then something happened that made everything different. On June 28, 1970, Phil was at a friend's house reading Melody Maker magazine when he saw an ad in the paper. A band was looking for a drummer who liked quiet music, it said. 12-string guitar. Genesis was that band. Phil was only 19 years old. To try out, he went to Peter Gabriel's folks' house in Surrey. It went on for 6 hours. He played music, sang background singing, and fit right in with the group. He was hired for $10 a week. He worked at a music store for a while because that wasn't enough to live on. He got in, though, and Genesis was never the same after that. Phil helped make 3 records that defined Genesis's prog rock era between 1971 and 1973. Back in October 1971, Nursery Crime was the first one. It became famous that he played the drums on a 23-minute track of music boxes. Then there was Foxtrot in 1972, where he played on Supper's Ready, a song that many fans of the style say is the best of its kind. There were a lot of time signature changes during the 20 minutes it ran. 4 4s, 7 8s, and even 9 to 8. Phil kept everything together. Sales England by the Pound made it to number 3 on the UK charts in 1973. He used 47 different kinds of percussion instruments like timpani, vibraphone, and even kitchen tools in the Battle of Epping Forest. He wasn't just a drummer at this point. He was very good with sticks. Genesis hit a wall in August 1975, though. Peter Gabriel went away. Everyone wasn't sure if the band would make it. To find a new singer, they held a huge audition process. 400 people came and went. Everybody had to sing 3 hard Genesis songs. People like Mick Strickland and Fish from Marillion were brought in. But the answer was always behind the drums. Phil had been singing background vocals for years, but when he tried lead vocals, it all came together again. He tried out for real on February 3, 1976. It was done after 4 hours. The band felt chills when he sang "In the Cage." The truth? They had been looking for him since week 3 to be sure they got him. Most people didn't know that Phil was living a second life at the same time. In 1975, he joined Brand X, a jazz-fused band. During the day, he recorded Wind and Wuthering with Genesis. At night, he would practice or play with Brand X. He would sometimes drum for 18 hours straight until his body gave out. The time signatures on their first record, Unorthodox Behavior, which came out in 1976, were things like 17:16 and 2:38. He played a 12-minute solo on Why Should I Lend You Mine in 1977 that blew everyone away. It was a tough drum part in the history of jazz fusion. Phil Collins didn't mean to become one of the 1980s biggest stars. It began with heartache. It ended in early 1979 when he got married to Andrea Bertarelli. He went back to his English home in Surrey, which was empty, by myself and angry. The pain didn't break him down. Instead, it made music. He brought an old piano from the 1820s into the bedroom and put a drum machine on it. There was no band or anything else to take Phil's attention away from the wreckage of his life. Face Value, his first record by himself, came out on February 13, 1981, just one day before Valentine's Day. It wasn't smooth or sweet, it was honest and raw, moving and full of feeling. People felt like they were hit in the chest by the song In the Air Tonight. It reached number 1. 19 on the Billboard, Hot 100 by August, while Diana Ross and Lionel Richie's Endless Love was at number 1. That difference said it all. While everyone else was celebrating love, Collins tore it down with loud drums and eerie quiet. Those drums weren't right. In fact, they were a mistake. The sound came from a studio in Shepherd's Bush where Collins and Peter Gabriel were making music. Hugh Pagan, the producer, left a microphone on by mistake. It was a mic for talking, but magic came out of it. Since the echo was cut off, the mic was squeezed and gated, making every drum hit sound like an explosion. That kind of drumming had never been heard before. The effect was used on In the Air Tonight, and everyone noticed. In the 1980s, pop and rock music used a sound called gated reverb all the time. It was used again in I Don't Care Anymore and Against All Odds by Collins. It was used in Mama by Genesis. Soon, everyone copied it until the 1990s when bands wanted something more natural. Still, singers like Beyoncé and Lorde bring that sound back, which shows how far Collins' mistake went. He didn't end there. He put out the album Hello, I Must Be Going in 1982. It had energy, rhythm, and heart. It got to number 2 in the UK and number 8 in the US. In Britain, his version of You Can't Hurry Love was the number 1 song. In 1985, No Jacket Required came out and changed everything. Collins got rid of the sad themes this time. He was looking for something happy. He used Sting and Peter Gabriel as backup singers and a lot of dance music. It was number 1 in the UK for 5 weeks and number 1 in the US for 7 weeks. In the US, it sold more than 12 million copies and won 3 Grammys, including Album of the Year. Collins had 3 number 1 hits in the US that year, more than anyone else. From 1984 to 1990, no one could stop him. In the US, he had 13 #1 songs. He got his first solo #1 in America with this song, Despite All Chances. He won a Grammy for the song, but didn't get an Oscar. He took a plane to Los Angeles and was ready to play, but they picked a dancer instead. Collins will always remember. He made fun of it on stage for many years. When and Then There Were Three came out in 1977, things had changed. Follow You, Follow Me made it into the top 10 in the UK and the top 40 in the US. It was catchy, it felt soft, it was pop. Hardcore Genesis fans felt let down by it. The same people had learned to sing 10-minute songs about magical beasts and kings who were dying. They were now hearing love songs, simple ones that hurt and wouldn't go away. Genesis had always been made up of guys, hard to understand, dominated by men, and proudly not business. That changed when Collins was in charge. A lot more people, mostly women, liked their new style. People were liking the band more and more, but early fans thought they were losing their soul. After that, Invisible Touch came out in 1986. It was a full-on pop hit. It then went off. The title song was #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the US. That was the first time Genesis did that. It sold more than 6 million copies in the US alone. 1.2 million in the UK. 5 songs from that record made it to the top 5 in the US. The Land of Chaos, Getting Rid of Everything in 2D, Tonight, Tonight, Tonight. All monsters on charts. Collins later said that the title song was based on The Glamorous Life by Sheila E. He wanted to make up his own story. It's funny that the song came from a jam session. It was just the band having fun. That song quickly became Collins's favorite. The singer Mike Rutherford said it was a great song. Fun to play. Fans had different opinions, but the numbers didn't lie. Invisible Touch was the #1 song on July 19, 1986. Sledgehammer by Peter Gabriel is right behind it at #2. One band, 2 lead singers, right next to each other on the charts. Genesis's past and present seem to be at odds with each other. The past didn't win, but there are costs to being successful. Phil Collins was bigger than Genesis by the middle of the 1980s. In the UK, Face Value was the #1 song for 3 weeks, and in the US, it reached #7. In the Air Tonight was a big hit all over the world. That scary drum break? Beloved. It got better after that. Hello, I Need to Go. No Need for a Jacket, but really all multi-platinum, No Jacket Needed, had 4 #1 hits and 2 other top 10 hits. Not only was he doing well, he was great. Collins had more #1 hits in the US than anyone else by the end of the decade. Collins had to reassure the other members of Genesis that he wasn't leaving when they got back together in late 1985 to make Invisible Touch. He said, "I'm happy with what we're doing now." However, everyone knew it would end soon. Collins finally left in 1996. In the end, Mike Rutherford said that the surprise was that he stayed so long. Not everyone liked how well it did. A lot of people really didn't like it. Collins turned into the face of giving up. He didn't just become popular, he took it over. He was getting old for some people. By 2010, he said, "I'm sorry that everything worked out so well. I really didn't mean for that to happen." The anger, it also wasn't subtle. In the movie American Psycho, Patrick Bateman goes on and on about Phil Collins before he kills someone. It was easy to understand. Collins was seen as the personification of all the things people didn't like about 80s pop. South Park even joined in, making fun of him as a failed star who was only funny if you were high. Phil Collins looked up to the Beatles as a child. To make things even better, he brought something special with him to Buckingham Palace in 2002 when they finally met. A first copy of the Beatles' biography, and asked them to sign it. McCartney smiled and told his wife, "Oh, Heather, our little Phil's a bit of a Beatles fan." They didn't warm up. That line really hit me hard. Collins was shocked. It didn't seem like a joke. He felt like he was being made fun of for liking someone he listened to as a child. He said he would never forget that moment years later. In his words, you fey, it got worse. Collins later said that McCartney thought he was better than everyone else. When McCartney finally got in touch, it wasn't really an apology. Collins said it seemed more like, let's go. But that comment had stuck with him for too long. He wasn't just angry, he was hurt too. When pride is important at work, even a small insult can turn into a fight that lasts a year. However, Simon Cowell also did not get away with it. Collins made it clear in 2005. He couldn't stand Cowell or the way he was mean. I don't have time for Stephen Colbert. He told her that he's mean. One event stood out to him. Cowell told a woman who sang on boats, I'd never go on a boat you were singing on because it would sink. Collins didn't see that as judgment. It made them look bad. People asked him to be on talent shows like American Idol, but he turned them down. He thought they were dead forms that didn't care about art ratings or all. Said that going on one of those shows would make me want to hit my head against the wall. For Collins, the issue wasn't just Hood, it was what he stood for. It was like a workshop where stars were made by putting other people down. Then Britpop came along, and it was rough. The lead singer of Oasis, Noel Gallagher, went after Collins personally. Gallagher went to war with what he called McDonald's music in the early 1990s. He said that Phil Collins and Sting were at the top of that list. During a 1994 interview, he said, "By the end of this decade, I want Phil Collins' head cut off and in my fridge. If I haven't, I'll have failed." Later, Gallagher warmed up a bit and said he was being over the top, but he never really stopped. He called Collins the devil of music over and over again. Collins also didn't hold back. He said that the Oasis brothers were bad people who were rude and not as good at music as they thought they were. He still said he liked their music, even though he thought their behavior was stupid. It wasn't just about one person, it was about generations. Collins was polished pop from the old guard. Britpop wanted to be different. That's what Kurt Cobain thought, and it was mean. He made fun of cartoons, horns, white male soul, and tie-dye clothes. He joked that they might have been colored with Phil Collins' pee and Jerry Garcia's blood. Collins wasn't the person Cobain hated. He hated what Collins stood for. He thought that commercial pop music was fake and mindless. It wasn't just about how it tasted. It had to do with morals. Collins stood for everything that Cobain thought grunge was trying to destroy. Even though they never met, Cobain's words stuck with them. He wanted to end an era, and Collins was the face of that age. Collins was in pain, but it wasn't just for everyone to see. When he got divorced, things were even worse than when he was married. He's been married 3 times. The first one was over in 1980. The second one, in 1996, cost him $17 million, which is about $34 million. It was 2008, though, that caused the most shock. He had to pay $46,076,000 to get divorced from Oriane Sevi. It was the biggest divorce deal between 2 famous people in British history at the time. Even McCartney's well-known payment to Heather Mills was less. Collins lost about $84 million in divorce payments, which is almost a third of his whole wealth. The news stories weren't nice. They said he was bad at love. What happened next, though, made things worse. After briefly making peace with CV in the late 2010s, she broke up with him quickly over text and married someone else in Las Vegas. What's the real twist? She wouldn't leave his $40 million home in Miami. It is said that she hired armed guards, blocked security cameras, and replaced the locks with her new husband. Said they were planning a takeover. CV then asked for $20 million, saying Collins had agreed to give her half of the home's value. He didn't say it. The court case went on for years, until 2022. Sevi's claims were thrown out by the judge because she kept breaking court orders, but the harm was already done. Collins had been made fun of in public again. The woman he used to trust told him she would tell other people secret information about him if he didn't pay. No longer was it just divorce. There was war. Then there was Phil Collins's daughter Lily. She is now her own star. Has been honest about how tense their relationship is. When she was 5, her parents split up. Collins wasn't there for a long time, and it hurt. She wrote, "I forgive you for not always being there when I needed you," in her 2017 autobiography. She talked about how her father's silence made her feel insecure, helpless, and empty inside. He might have been living, but it felt like he wasn't there most of the time. It was raw and hurt, but it was real. They started to rebuild over time. Lily stood next to her dad at his last Genesis show. He was her hero. But the way back was long and heavy with the weight of what was lost. Behind the fame, the money, the grudges, and the rumors, there was a man who was having a hard time keeping himself together. Collins broke down after his 3rd divorce. He first drank early in the day, at 11 a.m., wine, vodka at that point. He almost died. Eventually, he couldn't drum anymore because he got pancreatitis and nerve damage. Phil Collins was more than just a rock star. On the charts and in movies, he became a well-known name. The movie Buster, which came out in 1988, was his first big step into acting. He played Buster Edwards, a person who helped with the well-known Great Train Robbery of 1963. In the U.S. and other places, the movie did very well, bringing in more than $540,000. The music, though, was what really made it big. Collins' version of A Groovy Kind of Love was a huge hit. It was the #1 song in both the U.S. and the U.K. Two Hearts, another song from the movie, also went to the top of the U.S. Billboard charts and won a Golden Globe. Collins had done something very unusual. His acting and singing were both big hits at the same time. After just over 10 years, he reached another high point. Collins worked with Disney on the 1999 cartoon movie Tarzan. He composed and sang the love song You'll Be in My Heart, which was the main theme of the movie. For 19 weeks, the song was #1 on the adult current chart. It won him an Oscar for Best Original Song in 2000. It was even more amazing that he recorded it in more than one language. Collins himself spoke and sang the song in Spanish, German, French, and Italian. The Tarzan soundtrack went on to sell over 2.5 million records in the U.S. alone, making it a worldwide hit. He had won a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Golden Globe, which is something that not many people ever do. Collins did more than just play lead parts and win big awards, though. He loved catching people off guard. He showed up in Miami Vice in 1985 as a stylish con artist. A rock star in a crime drama? Bands didn't think it would happen, but he did a great job.